Speaking tongues, interpretation of tongues, prophecy, word of knowledge, word of wisdom, discerning of spirits, faith, miracles, and gifts of healing. That is the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. That is how he reveals himself and how the Spirit works within us. Now, there are a lot of bogus stuff going on out there, a lot of showmanship and a lot of nonsense that is going on, and it is being called the Holy Spirit. It's reaching epidemic proportions out there. And now I get to take you on that journey throughout the book of Acts to show you each one of these manifestations. As it says, for this promise is unto you and unto your children and to all that are far off, even as many as Yehovah our Elohim shall call. Shaul, Paul, is the one who articulates the manifestations that are evident throughout the entirety of the Hebrew Scriptures. The only ones specifically added for the benefit of Yeshua's followers was speaking in tongues and interpretation of tongues. In 1 Corinthians chapter 12, he begins to lay out some spiritual matters. As it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 1, now concerning spiritual gifts is in italics. It's not in the text. This is not specifically concerning spiritual gifts. This is pneumatikos. Now concerning pneumatikos, these are matters pertaining to, deriving from the Spirit, and there are several spiritual matters that are addressed here. And he said, concerning spiritual matters, I would not have you ignorant, brethren. And if we're not going to be ignorant, he's going to have to give us some detail of how not to be ignorant. And then he starts out, and this is beautiful because it is to Gentiles, addressed to Gentiles who are beginning to learn to walk by the Spirit. This is the Gentile believers in Corinth. We've seen all through the book of Acts, and we'll see the manifestations of the Spirit and the way that the Almighty communicates with his people, which is detailed very specifically. But now, to the believers in Corinth, he's going to lay these things out. And he says, you realize, you have apprehended that you were Gentiles, carried away unto dumb idols, idolatry, the stupidity, if you allow me, of following idols and idolatries instead of following the true God. You know that you were Gentiles. See, they know that they are now grafted into Israel. That the Gentiles, this has been the promise from old time, that the Gentiles would be fellow heirs and of the same body. Just as Ruth, a Moabitess, was grafted into Israel and became the great-grandmother of King David and the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, many times moreover, of Yeshua, a Gentile woman, and what they were into is a worship of Chemosh. And these people realize that now they are no longer Gentiles. They have a Gentile mentality. That comes through renewing of the mind to get yourself separated from Gentile paganism or rabbinic Judaism. Both of those perversions, you do have to renew your mind and come out of that. But you know that you were Gentiles. You were carried away under these dumb idols that can't speak, even as you were led. You inherited these things. Wherefore, this is why I give you to understand that no man speaking by the Spirit of God calls Yeshua accursed. Now, and this is something that is commonly done in rabbinic Judaism, where they will call Yeshua Yesu, which is an acronym. May his name and memory be blotted out. But anyone who speaks by the Spirit of God, it's impossible to call Yeshua accursed. And no man can say that Yeshua is Yehovah, but by the Holy Spirit. And this is what we covered in the first message of Peter, that is nailing this very thing down, that Yeshua has been given a title and authority that was given to him by Yehovah the Father when he raised him from the dead. Every true believer recognizes that Yeshua of Nazareth is the Messiah, who will rule from his millennial throne in Jerusalem for 1,000 years as Yehovah Tsevaot. This is the 14th chapter of Zechariah. But those who deny this fact and curse him by the acronym Yesu are not speaking by the Holy Spirit. They do not have the Spirit within them. They may be religious, but still, they will not have any of the power of God. And we're going to see those Jewish followers, or those Jews in the book of Acts who later on want to have the power, pretend to have the power, and they end up on the short end of the prophetic stick. Now, again, I want to read 1 Corinthians 12:1. Now concerning spiritual matters, brethren, I would not have you ignorant. You know that you were Gentiles carried away unto these dumb idols, even as you were led. And then you repented of your pagan past. Now, concerning these spiritual matters, there are diversities. There are acts of dividing gifts and these gift ministries in the body. Apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. Those are the gift ministries. They are not gifts to the individuals. The individuals, their life is a gift to the body of believers. And there are diversities or differences of operations, the way ministries are energized. But and it also says that there are differences of administrations. There are different ways of serving. But, verse 7, but the manifestation of the Spirit, the outward visible evidence, the outworking of the small, lowercase spirit, the gift, that evidence, that manifestation is given to every man to profit withal. These are not the gifts of the Spirit. The gift of the Spirit is the gift of Holy Spirit. These are the manifestations of that gift. And as Peter had spoken previous, for the promises unto you and unto your children, and all that are far off, even as many as Yehovah our Elohim shall call. So these manifestations, all these manifestations were evident throughout the scriptures, with the exception, really, of speaking in tongues and the interpretation of tongues. And so, starting with the day of Shavuot, you have those additions. Speaking tongues, interpretation of tongues, prophecy, word of knowledge, word of wisdom, discerning of spirits, faith, miracles, and gifts of healing. That is the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. That is how he reveals himself and how the Spirit works within us. Now, there are a lot of bogus stuff going on out there, a lot of showmanship and a lot of nonsense that is going on, and it is being called the Holy Spirit. It's reaching epidemic proportions out there. It's spiritual insanity is what's going on out there, because anything outside, they talk about, this is the manifestations of the Spirit outside the box. You're not thinking outside the box. Well, what's outside of the box is demonic. That's what's outside of the box. It's the manifestation in the senses realm of the internal reality and presence of the gift of the Holy Spirit, which is a gift from the Holy Spirit. The gift of the Holy Spirit is the gift from the Holy Spirit, and there are 9 manifestations of that Spirit. Shalom, Torah fans. Give this video a thumbs up and share it with a friend. Tap the subscription button and the bell icon, and I promise to update weekly with in-depth biblical research. Be sure to download the new michaelrood.tv app for both mobile and home devices for even more commercial-free content.